Don't copy that.
All right. We are. I have audio. I have vidya. And I do believe we are ready to do a podcast, everybody. No, chat room. We have not already started the JoJo game. God. And that one doesn't count because we haven't officially started. All right. Right. Okay. I see us on the YouTubes. I believe we will be on the DiamondClub.tv momentarily. And somebody stop playing the video. Stop.
That was me. Mea culpa.
All right.
We each only allowed one slip up tonight.
In that case,
I'm out.
I'm way behind. Sean, you're doing this alone. All right. Let us start this hoot nanny.
I was ready for a shindig, not a hootenanny.
It's a hoot nanny. Deal with it.
Nobody told me this would be a hootenanny.
I will say you are dressed for a hootenanny, I must say, Mark.
Well, it's International Sailor Moon Day.
It is. It most
I
certainly
was
is.
looking really, really hard for a tiara, which in our house for some reason is not easy to find. You would think with a 4-year-old, but they're all broken. So this is as close as I can get to a tuxedo mask.
When in doubt, as my cosplayer friends have told me, when in doubt, the thrift stores are your friend.
I'm not spending money on this. Sorry.
Shall we, gentlemen? Shall we? All right. A3K Podcast, episode 131. In 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the A3K Podcast, powered by the fine folks at anime3000.com. I'm David Majors. I'm your host this evening. My co-host, Jack D, is currently on assignment. Jack will be back next week for full-on fun podcast shenanigans. But in the meantime, in between time, you are tuning in to A3K Live on the YouTubes at A3K TV. Thank you for downloading and subscribing via anime3000.com. Joining me this evening, my good friend from the Mega Anime Ultra Show, a Mr. Mark. Whoa, Mark, look at you. You are dressed. You are significantly overdressed for this podcast, sir.
I feel like after this returning once more, I decided to step on my game. Plus, it is International Sailor Moon Day.
You are absolutely
Somebody
right.
had to
First
do
of
this.
First of all, Mark, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for finally catching on to the idea that I'm trying to bring some class and some professionalism to the A3K podcast. I really appreciate
Amen.
it. Also, on behalf of all of us on the intertubes, I want to wish all of you a very happy International Sailor Moon Day. Moonies, Moon Princesses, Tuxedo Mask, Earth Kingdom Defenders, and Sailor Star dudes who might be guys or girls. I want to wish all of you a happy International Sailor Moon Day. In the name of love and justice, we shall podcast.
That sounds great. I still have no idea what you're supposed to do at International Sailor Moon Day, other than maybe, I don't know, watch Sailor Moon.
You twirl around and you pose for a minute and a half.
Oh, that sounds good. I was briefly contemplating dressing up as Lady Beard, but I was missing critical pieces around the house.
Now, since we don't have a wide shot of that, I'm just gonna say that could be a win or a loss for all of us. But however, the person that might have put the veto on this is none other than the executive producer, founder, general manager, president, commissioner of food and beverage, chief executive offender of the A3K network at anime3000.com, the one and only Mr. Sean Russell. Good evening, Mr. Russell.
How are you doing? So glad to be here.
I'm great. Except apparently later on in the show, I got word from the A3K Newswire that this is gonna be my performance review.
And you better believe it. Here at Anime 3000, we like to do things called quality control. And tonight, I'm gonna control your head into a toilet of pure destruction. Get ready, cause it's gonna get hurty.
I was in no way prepared for this at all.
Obviously, you're wearing a T-shirt. For God's sakes.
It's a T-shirt from an anime convention, though, so it counts.
Mark got
an anime convention.
That's
an anime
fair.
convention I was just at last week, so it counts. I'm still working within the genre. It still counts. But guys, there was something that happened this week that actually was pretty interesting. Real talk, we're going to totally break the fourth wall here. There wasn't a whole lot of really interesting anime and manga news this week. Yes, Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F made a lot of money. We all knew it would. That's not exactly...
10.
It did.
It did.
And
best Dragon Ball Z movie of all times in terms of money. I can't speak to it otherwise.
And it did really well. It made a lot of money to the surprise of no one. However, there was something on the interwebs lately regarding Dragon Ball that actually was interesting that we have not talked about ad nauseum for the last year. Now, Dragon Ball Super is about 5 episodes in now. And as it stands right now, Goku is training with King Kai on episode 5. And Lord Beerus, the god of destruction, has decided to stop in at King Kai's planet. And apparently, as it stands, the animation was not very good. There was some frame issues, some animation issues, and the interwebs kind of lost their ish over this. Mark, did you catch on to this?
Not until you mentioned it to me, because I'm not watching Dragon Ball Super. But before we went on, I actually watched this scandalous episode 5, and you know what? I didn't think it was all that bad. I think the real reason that Dragon Ball Z fans should be upset is that they've been trotting out the same plot for the last 20 years. So at this point, I think that's much more upsetting that they are doing exactly the same thing that they did when I watched it in early 2000 in reruns.
Ladies and gentlemen, the views
training
of
with
Mark,
King Kai. Oh, the shore. Stop the presses.
Mark only reflect the views of Mark and the Mega Anime Ultra Super, and no way reflect the views of Anime 3000's affiliates or partners. You have been warned. I'm kidding. Of course.
You're welcome to spam my website.
They totally reflect our views. They absolutely 100% reflect our views. And apparently they reflect the views of a lot of people out there. I'll put this up on the screen now. And this came from Kotaku. And apparently, there were some of these that actually looked
it's glorious.
pretty glorious and good. Now, there is one I'm going to scroll down that I'm looking for in particular. Also, shout out to Josh Dunham from Senpai Coast to Coast, who was with us not that long ago, that actually has an avatar on Twitter of one of these frames. And there is one in particular that I'm hoping I see. Here is one of them right here. This is just great. Get a look at this one, guys. Apparently, Goku is having such a hard time with Beerus that he's found another type of Super Saiyan transformation to where he grows 3 times as big.
It's Choji!
Wow. It's over 9,000 pixels. No?
And here's another one where I think that this does not exactly look like Goku.
No.
I mean, it looks like he might have gotten something resembling a buzz cut, but this one right here is definitely my favorite. You can barely see them. And clearly, if you look at their eyes, if you can, I'll try and zoom in on this best I can. If you look if you look at Goku and you look at Beerus's eyes in this shot, it's on Kotaku. Yeah. Something tells me.
Absolutely horrible.
But to be fair, they're isolating like some of the in-between frames. When you were really watching the show, like the big moments, they were nicely done. This is just one quick shot in like a long fight sequence. So when you isolate that, of course it looks horrible.
Yes.
I would say another issue that's really glaring is they didn't even bother drawing backgrounds. Basically, the entire episode is pink sky all the way through. That is where you really can tell that they are not about to put any money or effort into this. It's like, why draw backgrounds? Why draw in-betweens?
One more time, I'll put this up on the chat for everybody to see and up on the screen. Here's Goku behind the aforementioned pink background.
And this is Super Saiyan 3. That's as advanced as it can get.
Do you guys remember back in the day when Toonami would let people send their fan art in, and they'd show the fan art from the Toonami fans?
Long, age 10.
Yes.
Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh
man! VCR and trace the TV.
I can't help but wonder. This just makes me ask the question, guys. What happened to the money that they made with Battle of the Gods? What happened?
You mean the money that Funimation made?
That probably went into another show that they acquired called Prison School.
Are we going there already?
Yeah, we are. We are, Mark.
But you know, all of this.
So Mark,
if I can harp on Dragon Ball Z for just a second, you know, all of this honestly doesn't bother me. This last week, I finally went back and watched Neon Genesis Evangelion.
That show bothered you.
That show is 20 years old, and when you look at that now, you would say this is horrible animation. Why would I bother watching this show? Well, you would bother because the story is fantastic. And the story is still... I see the face you're making. The story is by far more entertaining than Dragon Ball Z Super or Dragon Ball Super.
That's that's MAUS Podcast, everybody, on Twitter. MAUS Podcast on Twitter to check out Mark at the Mega.
Do we have the lower third? Do we have the Chiron? Do we have that thing set up yet? Not yet.
I'll get on that. I'll get on that.
Okay.
But come on, though, if you're really looking at it, you're watching the anime because of the story. The story is interesting, or it's not interesting, and at the end of the day, who cares if the animation is or isn't quite as perfect? If the story isn't entertaining, it doesn't matter what else they put in. And with Dragon Ball Z, my biggest problem is, honestly, they've been trotting out the same thing forever. Forever.
Mark, I can tell you exactly what the issue is. When they started the production on Dragon Ball Super, they were anticipating paying a good portion of the animation budget with the money that they would be able to hijack from the American distributors. But since they haven't been able to figure out a contract, they've had to go to less reliable sources to do the in-betweening. And then you get episode 5. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just solved the Rubik's puzzle of why the episode quality looks crappy, and you're welcome.
You know, I would buy it.
That's why he's the boss, everybody.
That they didn't have money stockpiled in warehouses all over Japan. I can't imagine that they couldn't float themselves a little bit of a better animation budget until, you know, the overseas contract comes through.
Well, you see, Mark, it wasn't Toei Animation that was stocking all of that money from Dragon Ball. It was Funimation. Funimation has been the one that's been milking Dragon Ball for the last decade. Toei, and you can imagine probably all of Japan, has pretty much moved on. Whereas here in the Western world, we're the ones that are all screaming, "It's over 9,000!" and we're the ones that are still hanging on to Dragon Ball.
Well, this reminds me of a story from my youth, because Knight Rider was huge in Germany, and when the Germans eventually went back to...
Oh, yes! Please, Mark, tell this story.
Yes,
I would love to hear
Germans.
David Hasselhoff and Germany. I got to hear this, please.
It's honestly not that great of a story.
Tell it anyway!
Basically, by the time Knight Rider caught on in Germany, it was long dead in the United States, and the Germans ran back and said, "Can we please have another season?" And said there are none. So I think on that note, it's time to move on. So begrudgingly, we accepted Baywatch, and we're not talking about his singing.
we're not going to talk about Baywatch. The less said about that one, the better. But guys, have you seen? Has everyone here on the panel seen Battle of the Gods already? Okay, Mark has not. So far, just to catch Mark up on both Dragon Ball Super and Battle of the Gods, they are essentially stretching Battle of the Gods, the movie, out for a long, long time to tell what is apparently going to be the first arc of Dragon Ball Super. So at its core, Mark, you're not completely off the mark by saying they're pretty much telling the same story. However, they're telling the Dragon Ball Battle of the Gods movie, not Dragon Ball Z. So
I apologize
yes, but no.
profusely.
Yes, but no. Yes, but no.
Dragon Ball.
No, you don't.
I'm not taking it back. Can we just let it die? Please.
Dragon Ball was never my favorite show personally. Back in the day, I was the Gundam Wing kid. I was the first kid in my high school to have the Gundam Wing T-shirt, as opposed to everyone else wearing a Dragon Ball Z shirt. Yes, even back in the day, David Majors was a little anime hipster. Everybody, I just could not help myself. So far, 5 episodes in, I'm simply watching it to keep up with the kids, and it's not
You're watching
horrible.
it for professional reasons.
Yes, kind of like
a sports writer. You have to keep writing about your favorite team, even if they suck. You have to cover the games.
That is exactly what I'm doing with Dragon Ball Super. I'm watching it. I don't think it sucks. Certainly, it's certainly not Prison School, Mark.
Attempt 2.
You may segue.
We can't avoid this anymore, Mark.
It's your show. You can't avoid it.
No, Mark. We need to hammer this out. We need to hammer this out right now.
All right.
One of the shows that I think Funimation bought with their infinite amount of Dragon Ball money was Prison School. Now, Mark, you and I have been watching this show, respectively, and you have been tweeting about it, and I've been talking about it on It's in Season, my newest show with my friends Richard Waters and Cody Anderson. What we've been doing on It's in Season is that we've been trying to cover a show that is in the current anime season to keep up with everyone and progress to the next season and the next season. And at the first episode, the beta episode, we debated over which show we wanted to watch. And I wanted to watch God Eater because that show is good. However, I kind of got outvoted simply because of the reason of people on the internet enjoy watching people yell and scream and rant about bad things.
That's
so it's all of
a good point.
It is your fault.
There's so many other bad shows you could have settled on.
Well, I go big. I go big or I go home. And then I drop a show after 4 episodes.
I know. I love the idea of It's in Season. It's such a good concept. But
But then you run
kind
into
of
a show
mad. I feel like you left your only loyal listener out in the cold. I wanted you guys to keep ranting.
Here's the thing about this show, Mark, for the listeners at home that have not caught on to it. It is a show where 5 young men get transferred to an all-female high school. And they end up doing some lewd, crude, and socially unacceptable things, and they get put in the school's prison. So...
Which they have, for some reason.
Which they have, apparently.
You were missing one key point, though, if I can interrupt your monologue. The school that they transferred into is an all-girls school until these 5 young men arrived. So the male-to-female ratio is 200 to 1, which is their main reason for wanting to attend the school, which I can sort of relate to because, as it just so happens, my high school was a previous all-girls school. My college was a previous all-girls school. It accidentally happened. But on some level, I can relate to those guys. We never had the 200 to 1 ratio, but I had a 15 to 1 ratio.
I have to ask a question here, Mark.
Sure.
These schools that you attended, were they in Germany? And 2, how many silly German stereotypes were held up?
High school wasn't in the...
Mark?
They're censoring him.
Clearly they're on to you, Mark. So I'm going to move on and just
Angela
expound.
Merkel is playing down her fist of justice.
Apparently. Now, the show itself, it has the student council, the secret student council vice president, who has gray hair and has about an L cup breast size, and she has a thing for violence. Also, the secret student council president hates men, and their third. Who I forget what her title is
secretary.
A karate master. The secretary is a karate master, and they all just go out of their way to make these guys' time in prison an absolute hell. However, at the same time, none of these guys are all that redeemable. They're all awful. And the truth is, everything about this show is pretty much garbage, and I want to make this a public service announcement. but I'm going to let Mark from the Mega Anime Ultra Show try and make this case as to why someone should continue watching Prison School.
I have to make the case? I would make the case that when you dive in and have a show called It's in Season, that for the benefit of your listener, you suffer all the way through. It's your professional obligation.
I agree with Mark. Can't jump ship because things are getting rocky.
I know, and I think I pointed out on Twitter that Roger Ebert reviewed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Professional obligation.
Didn't Roger Ebert also say he loved Caligula?
Maybe he was talking about the actual historical figure.
No, I'm pretty sure he meant the movie.
Oh.
So Roger Ebert's tolerance for crap, like really, like liquid, having a really bad day after way too much Mexican food, crap is probably really high. A lot higher than mine.
The thing what Roger Ebert did really well is he would take a movie for what it is. So he wouldn't necessarily compare, Texas Chainsaw Massacre to, The Piano, but he would compare it to what it is and where it stands in its genre of crappy horror movies. And in that context, it's not bad if you like horrible horror movies. And in that sense, I think that's where you would talk about Prison School. you can compare Prison School to Shirobako, but you can compare Prison School to other trashy anime. The one thing that keeps
Man Wonderland.
Yes, exactly.
There's that adjective you just used, trashy. It's trash.
Yes.
But here's the thing. I'm not gonna harp on that too much because I want to ask a question to the fans out there. Tweet at us at Anime3000. You know what? As a matter of fact, send me an email if you like. D Majors, first initial last name at anime3000.com. Because this is one thing that I want to know. This is something that I always try and do. I always try and push open-mindedness and tolerance, even when it comes to things that I don't like Prison School, like Penny and Stocking. I'm fine.
But that you watched all the way through.
I'm fine. I'm fine, guys. I'm fine. I'm fine. And I did that for Lily. I'm fine.
At least it wasn't Boku no Pico, according to some of the people in the chat.
Right.
Or Poopa.
I just want to ask, what if you're out there and if you are watching Prison School this season, I would like to know what its appeal is. And beyond just being trash, I want to know what you're getting out of it. Because I look at this show and I see nothing redeemable. Penny and Stocking at least had one decently animated sequence in the first episode.
I thought you were going to say the redeemable part is that one of the character gets killed in the end. Spoiler.
Spoiler. He didn't say which one.
There you go.
In the case of
maybe it was the poop monster. Who knows? You have to watch.
Don't watch that show, guys. Don't. Just don't.
All right, well, since we have a tie-in with the DBZ to our first half of the show, one thing I can say about Prison School, and God knows why, it is rather beautifully animated. And this is where I'm really struggling, is what exactly were they trying to accomplish? Because sometimes it's like, is it a little bit, noir and like over-the-top violence, and, that's their thing? I'm halfway curious to see how they are resolving this. Or if it's just, one ongoing fest of one crappy scene after the next, one degrading experience after the other, or if this is sort of building up to some sort of resolution, no matter how terrible it ends up being. At this point, though, I would have to argue there's virtually no difference between Prison School and hentai. And you could probably say there's better hentai than Prison School.
I think we have our show title. Or if you want, you could just go hire a sex worker. If that's what you do some role play. Hey, we don't judge here, except for Cody. Nobody's judging you. It's all good.
In all fairness, the show is really shitty to all characters. It isn't painting the boys as, they're depraved and the girls punish them. The girls are, just as horrible. There is not a single good person in the show. Maybe the one person that the main character sort of is lusting after, but she's basically a doormat. So there aren't really any good qualities about her either. It's basically a show that shits on humans from start to finish, so I don't know what the moral is. And I'm curious to find out.
You really can't say she has a character. She is basically the empty waifu of the series.
Yep. She's like the unobtainium, or just some weird MacGuffin. It's like we must aspire to her, and this is spirals the whole escape plan, and whatever.
Sean, so far, what you have possibly seen and heard so far of Prison School, are you interested?
It sounds like a winner. No, Sean Russell, no. He doesn't. No, I don't think I'm gonna watch this. No. You see, I'm trying to give myself an invigoration of anime sauce pumped directly into my vein, and I don't want to be contaminated with just air in my syringe. And I thought this is what this is.
No. Because that'll leave Cody in charge of the network. And then I'll be gone. He'll fire me. I don't want to get fired. Just want to give a quick shout out to the King of Reyes 3 in the chat room. He says, "But David, a sex worker requires me to interact with women, and I heard they bite." Yes, they do. They certainly do. Yes, they do. Am I right, guys? Am I right, Sean?
Hey.
Am I right, Mark? Am I right? Am I right or am I right? Am
Shop
I right?
around? I don't know.
And hey, this is something that I stand for, and I want to send another message to everyone out there. Remember, kids, 3D women are better than 2D women. Why? Because you can't put your D in 2D. You can put your D in 3D. Remember that. Remember your old buddy David Majors at A3K told you that. Just remember. Right, Mark?
Oh my God.
Right, Mark?
So, in that light, maybe okay. Here's my case for prison school. Why would anyone want to go see a horror film? Because we like the adrenaline rush of a horrible scare, and that's exciting, and we come out of it and we feel alive, maybe? I mean, otherwise, why would anybody object themselves to a movie that's full of jump scares and, you know, gore and blood and violence? So maybe if this anime is just so over the top, horrible, brutal, bloody, and degrading, it's like a cleansing experience from which at the end you can walk away from, and you've gotten all that stuff flushed out of your system.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Mark, you just said anyone who likes horror movies in prison school are idiots.
No.
That's what I heard.
Now, Mark,
No, but, you know, honestly,
allow me.
Okay, let's say roller coasters. If that's your cup of tea, you like the thrill of the, I don't know, the speed, the near-death experience, you get off of it, you feel better. But otherwise, why would you subject it to yourself to that? So, you know, maybe that's, you know, why you would want to watch this. Otherwise, I'm honestly struggling why this thing exists. I really am.
Mark, I'm going to take your horror analogy, and I'm going to drop it with a tombstone pile driver through a flaming table. With one word. Trauma. The Trauma Film Company specializes in schlocky, crappy, low-budget horror movies. And die-hard horror fans love Trauma. However, at the same time, you'll also hear all sorts of die-hard horror film fans saying how the horror genre isn't good anymore. There's nothing really scary anymore. It's all jump scares and stuff that's supposed to be based on real life. There isn't anything scary anymore. But at the same time, they'll love watching crap.
And boy, does this season offer a lot.
I've been trying, everybody. I've been trying to make my way through the muck to find at least one good show per season. That's something I've always done, even before I started here at the network. I want to try and find at least one or two shows per season that I can say are pretty good. And so far, I think I've done that with God Eater. Last season, it was Death Parade, and it was a few before that. And I hope my recommendations are working out for you guys if you are checking them out. Sean, is there anything? Yes, I've heard Gate is pretty good as well. Also,
really
brand new episode of the Manga Corner, a show that came out this season that Colton and JD are reviewing the manga of Gangsta. I'm already interested. And also, by the way, how appropriately timed with the release of Straight Outta Compton. It's great. Well done, Team Manga.
It's a crazy brother named Ice Cube.
And I don't think they have a dub yet for Gangsta on Funimation, but I would be surprised if they don't.
They have released it. I know at least episode 1 of the dub is available.
Okay, got it. Then they're finally rolling out. So because they just released the first dub for Prison School. So Gangsta is probably the one of the two you want to watch. I don't know,
keep
David,
watching.
if you're gonna secretly finish watching Prison School, but I believe you have a philosophical take on it that you're not going to expose yourself to horrible stuff voluntarily. I am
I
probably
don't
going
believe.
to
I
see it
don't
through to
believe.
the end at
I,
this point, because two reasons. I really want to see if it honestly is just a pile of garbage or if they're coming up with a justification at the end for the pile of garbage, no matter how far-fetched it is.
Like Bloodsea.
Yeah. And I do put together a list of what I think are my worst anime shows for the year. And I feel if I write about the worst shows, then I honestly owe it to watch them all the way through and not watch 2 or 3 episodes and declare it the worst of the year. So far, this is my strongest contender for the worst show, probably of the last decade. But we haven't reached the finale.
Now, Mark, allow me to
It
counter.
might drop down to number 2.
I will allow myself certain hours in the day to watch anime. And more often than not, I want to watch anime I enjoy. I am not, nor have I ever been, a big proponent of the concept of hate watching. It's why I've stopped watching Monday Night Raw. It's why I didn't watch the Republican debates. If I'm going to
But that was so
something,
entertaining! Okay, here's my thing. If a show is boring, that to me is the biggest crime. I don't care how well it is animated or how crappy it is animated. If it bores me, it's gone. But if it's at least entertaining, no matter how crappy, I'm willing to keep watching.
I can agree with that. That's how I felt with Mr. Robinson.
Here's to you, Mr. Robinson. We can agree to disagree. I'm going to just keep watching the decent anime that I have found. And yes, everyone, there is decent anime out there. I promise you. If you don't believe me, tweet us at Anime3000 on the Twitter twatter, and I will personally tell you. You'll see it from me using the hashtag A3KDJM. You'll see that. But Sean,
I'm honestly a little sad that you guys for It's in Season didn't go with Shimoneta, because it's also really terrible, but there is so much you could sink your teeth into to keep watching and discussing.
It was one of the shows that was debated in the pre-show, but it did not make the beta episode. And yeah,
sorry.
But we decided to go even bigger, and we all agreed, yeah. This is too far. This was too far. Sean, Mark and I have been talking about everything we've been watching. What have you been dotting, sir? What have you been watching? Anything at all?
I've kind of nestled into my shows that I continuously watch throughout the week. Those shows include Dragon Ball Super, which I'm a little behind on. The Heroic Legend of Arslan, the English dub on Funimation. I love watching that every single week. I've been watching Do Ra Ra Ra, the most recent episodes. While I was in Otakon, I marathoned through the entire second season, and very disappointed that they're not keeping up with the dubs, because the dubs I prefer hands down over the Japanese version. But the show's so good, I have to keep up with it. Although
And Durarara had a great dub. It really had a good dub.
So that's one of the things I've been checking out. And Gangsta. I've been checking that out and keeping up to date with that show. I'm hoping maybe at God Eater. I did watch the first episode of the 2 episodes of Gate, and it wasn't bad. I watched Toshio and Yoshihiro, or whatever that show, Tomino and Yoshihiro, that show with the rabbit demon or whatever. I watched 1 episode of that, which was interesting, and that is about it. But I want to check out God Eater because you said so many good things about it, and I might watch 1 episode of Prison School just so I can know what I am going to be missing, because I'm not going to watch the rest.
Maybe you'll get hooked.
I like that. I like that one show that I probably shouldn't have liked. that came out a couple seasons ago with the video game players. Nobody.
Oh, No Game, No Life?
No Game, No Life. I enjoyed the mess out of that show, although I know I probably shouldn't
That's
have.
disaster.
So who knows? I might be like, what are they talking about? Is this the same prison school? This is an amazing show.
A Curious Scott, always with the gold in the chat room. A Curious Scott says, I have made it through the Bible Black dub. I can do prison school. Okay, A Curious Scott. That's all you, big man. That's all you. Just don't come crying back to us when you say you couldn't make it. So that's
I
all
think
you.
Discipline is a better comparison. Womp womp.
I'm just gonna leave that one out there.
I'm making your job interview easier.
Mark from the Mega Anime Ultra Show watched Discipline, everybody.
Yep.
I'm just gonna leave that out there, and I'm gonna leave the camera on him. So,
and I will honestly say, if you watch anime and you've never ever felt the urge to watch hentai, you're lying. You're a liar.
Aside from crap, Mark, what have you been dotting?
Oh, now I have to mention the good stuff? Oh, I think really hard.
Has no one been paying attention?
All right, so I keep harping on about Gate. I will mention it one more time. I wasn't initially thrilled about Charlotte, but the last 2 episodes have been really, really good, and I hope it keeps going in that pace. And as I mentioned earlier on, I finally watched all of Neon Genesis Evangelion, so now I feel like I've done some, professional duty. And there's another laundry list of anime that's way too long to list all of them, but so far it's honestly not a bad season.
I agree. This summer season has been pretty good. As I've said repeatedly, I'm watching God Eater. It's really, really good. I'm really enjoying it. As I said on It's in Season, it is anime as fuck, but I mean that in the best, most complimentary way possible. It is, for the lack of a better term, one anime-ass anime. If you like anime, and you do not, unless you have like a trigger for anime tropes, you will enjoy God Eater, I believe. Unless you're someone that just hates anime tropes. Other than that, don't watch it. But
can I make you a deal, David? I have not watched God Eater, and it sounds like you haven't watched Gate. I'll start God Eater if you watch Gate.
All right, let's internet handshake over it. We can internet handshake over it. I
You will not be
Gate.
disappointed, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be disappointed by God Eater.
All right, very good. Also, Legend of Arslan, still watching that one. It's about 19 episodes in. Still enjoying it a great deal. I'm glad people are finally catching on to that one. Sean?
Finally, I've been watching it for months, son.
Oh.
I read the manga. I read the manga, son.
Really? Did you? Really?
I read like 5 chapters of the manga.
Are you going to go to the A3K audience right now, Mr. Russell,
yes,
and tell us all that you've been reading the manga for Legend of Arslan?
I read 3 chapters of the manga on Crunchyroll manga because it was from the same artist as Full Metal Alchemist, and for that reason alone. And then when I started watching the dub, I was like, oh, this is the show that I read a little bit of the manga for. And then I was drawn in. I was sucked in, damn it.
How is the dub? I have not been watching it via the dub. Is it good?
The dub, it's good. It makes you feel like it has a lot of the same production value as Full Metal Alchemist, although I will admit some of the voice acting does kind of bring me back to my Clamp Tsubasa days.
So it's very pretty, is what you're saying.
I mean, as far as the voice acting.
All right, that's cool. I have not watched the dub at all, but I will check it out. So and Gate. I will check Gate out, and Mark, we will confer at a later date.
I'll probably start tweeting about God Eater in an hour.
Well,
I've had 2 cups of these. somebody's gonna stay awake.
I've had one myself. I understand completely. But before you start tweeting about God Eater, tell us, Mark. I hear you've got a brand new episode of the Mega Anime Ultra Show coming out.
Oh my God! I think I've done like 4 episodes with you before I've even released another episode. It's been so bad.
Can a brother get a guest spot? Okay. Can a brother get a guest spot?
Yes.
Yay!
All right. Well, the only requirement that we have is for a show, it's got to be finished, and we got to watch the entire show before we record. So unlike in season where you go bit by bit by bit, it's basically book club. Everyone goes home and reads, and then we get together and we kind of pick it apart. So
I'm
if
down.
you want to share your thoughts on Neon Genesis Evangelion, or when
the
God
next episode
wraps
you
up.
do. The next episode of the Mega Anime Ultra Show, the next show you pick, because I'm not doing Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Well, the next one on the docket is actually Haikyuu.
I don't even know what that one is, but I'll watch it.
That's a
Sports
volleyball
anime.
Oh, sports anime. Cool.
Really good sports anime, though.
All right. I'm down.
All right.
There's like 58 episodes of that show.
No. There will eventually be. They've been rolled in for a second season, but only 26 episodes.
Yeah, cool. I'm down. Sean, what have you got going on? Tell us.
I've got a lot of going on. I'm starting a local club. I'm getting my to promote anime and all that fun stuff. Working on some things behind the scenes with Anime 3000. As always, a lot of cool people. We have a big shout out to Kevin Markey, who is the webmaster for Anime 3000. He's allowed the consistency of articles and podcasts to come up on the website, given my hectic schedule. So that's been a godsend. So awesome for him. And then, of course, everybody else on on the A3K network that are obviously David, everybody, Mark always being a great guest coming on to the show. So everybody that's out there, if you have a blog or podcast, we respect the mess out of you because we know how much work it takes to put into it. So we're all about that. So if you guys, if you're watching this or you get wind of this and you want to come on to the network or you want to do something with us, all you got to do is just reach out to me. Very easy to work with. At least I think I'm easy to work with.
Sean is easy to work with. I am kind of insane. I'm the one that's crazy.
Yes, because you do like 4 podcasts a week? How?
I don't know. But you can see the podcasts that I do or listen to them at deltajulietmike.com. I do a bunch of podcasts. I'm starting a new one on Fear the Walking Dead and maybe even the Walking Dead series soon. So, yeah.
We need to have an intervention.
Oh, yeah. One more thing I wanted to say. Also, a big shout out to Jameer Durham, who is running the A3K radio. We put a brand new block out. So we did a poll, and it seems like people really wanted to hear K-pop block. So you can check that out all Eastern time at 3 p.m., 6 p.m., and 9 p.m. to hear our new K-pop block, in addition to our anime classics and arcade blocks on anime3000.com/A3K-radio.
All right. Before we wrap this up, Sean, what would you say about my performance?
Well,
Sean?
David.
Yes.
I'm glad that
Mr. Russell, sir.
I'm glad
Mr.
that
Russell,
we
sir.
I'm talking.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad that we've had this opportunity to sit and talk about your performance thus far at Anime 3000. While a lot of our interactions have been brief, you have left a clear mark on the history of this network, and
more like a scar.
And I'm happy to say that that'll do.
Ha suckers! I'm not going anywhere. And you can tune in to the A3K podcast on A3K TV each and every Saturday evening, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, with Jack D and myself on YouTube at A3K TV, and as well as at DiamondClub.tv. Hello, chat room. Hello, Diamond Club. DJM loves you. As always, check out everything else brought to you by the A3K Network at anime3000.com. Two Guys on a Mic, the Manga Corner, Nanashi Anime Podcast, The Other Side, and this very show right here from anime3000.com in iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and wherever else RSS feeds can be picked up and subscribed to. Until next time, I'm David Majors, for Mark and Mr. Sean Russell. Thank you all for tuning in. Oh, last but certainly not least, we would greatly appreciate if you are enjoying what you're hearing to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/anime3000. If you contribute a certain amount, let's say $100 a month, yes, the King of Reyes 3, I will do a drunk episode. In fact, I will do one drunk episode of the A3K podcast a month. I will do that if you contribute to the Patreon. Patreon.com/anime3000. And if I'm at a convention hosting the show, I absolutely will be drunk, because we're doing this in the evenings again, and, well, Saturday night at an anime convention, who knows what might happen. So just subscribe and tune on in to the A3K podcast. For Mark and for Sean Russell, I'm David Majors. Jack will be back next week. Thank you again for watching and listening, and we will see you on the interwebs next time.
Thank you very much. Short, sweet,
And that is
beautifully done.
Right at 11 o'clock on the button.
Oh,
You're a pro. A pro.
Almost like I know what I'm doing.
Well done.
All right. The king
All right.
of
King of Reyes.
He says we don't say his name right.
No, he said, I'll tip them $5, and he also said my name right.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
right.
Read, I
Thank
can't
you.
do much.
Nice.
One Eyes in 3D. I don't know your name. I leave that one to Jack. Leave that to Jack.
On I sees in 3D.
One Eye sees in 3D.
But it's on and I sees in 3D. It's O-N-E. It's O-N.
This is
E-Y-E.
why my internet name is really simple. It's my initials.
Is it on I sees in 3D or one I sees in 3D in the chat?
Let's all leave on that note and stay up all night
Sees
thinking
in
about it.
3D.
All right. Good night, internet.
Good night.
Say good night to the internet, everybody.
Good night, Gracie.